Hello, this is Paul Ricci. I'm here with Kourtney Rochelle Square. She's of the podcast. She runs a podcast with her aunt. Why are they so angry about issues related to the African American community? And is that what it's is it specifically with Black Lives Not Matter issues?
Well, I don't want to say that they're Black Lives Matters issues, because there's a concept and there is a group Black Lives Matter. Why are they so angry does is explore American history and how systemic racism affects a lot of our lives, even when we don't know it. As African American women, two African American women, my aunt and myself, yes, we were very concerned about African American issues, but above and beyond any organization, systemic racism affects us all. And we show through history how it's still affecting us today.
Okay, so yes, so here, well, I guess they are her aunt, Dr. Carol Francois, Cody McDevitt, and Jackie Gumby on September 7th this year will be on a panel discussing the Rosedale incident. This will be the so September 7th will be the 100th anniversary that the order was given by Mayor Joseph Caulfield for African American. So every African American who had been living in the city, since 1916, and every Mexican all of a sudden had to leave. Okay, I'll let Kourtney give you the background and discussion. So,
Well, what we're going to definitely do, I would advise everyone to definitely read Cody's book because it is a bit of history that a lot of Johnstown residents don't know. And it was a national incident. It was in the newspapers in 1923. So it was being discussed, but it has been forgotten. I, and along with, like you said, my aunt, Dr. Carol Francois, and the author, Cody McDevitt, will be talking about the incident. We will be talking about how that's relevant today. I will be talking about the concept of sundown towns and segregated neighborhoods in America. So there'll be a Q&A session, there'll be a presentation, it will be a live podcast. So we welcome everyone to come out, and we will also be honoring and showcasing the art, the photography, the beautiful photography of Jackie Gumby, who is a local photographer in Johnstown. So that is her part to play in that event. We definitely want to honor her because she has retired, but we want the town to be familiar if they already are not familiar with her beautiful photography.
okay, so like in the background, so like in night, say like during World War One, a lot of African Americans and Mexicans and other immigrants, including my grandfather, were invited here to Johnstown to work in the steel mills, while like many others were off fighting in World War One. And but unfortunately, in the summer of 2023, 1923, I should say, there was an incident where an African American gentleman shot and killed three police officers. And in response, the mayor, Joseph Caulfield, at the time issued an order, giving African Americans and Mexicans who had been living in the city for less than 7 years, well, since 1916, 24 hours to leave. So they were all forced out. And yes, as Kourtney said, it did become a national issue. So this is what they are commemorating. Well, most of them were living in the Rosedale neighborhood of Johnstown. So yes, which is now mostly, it's currently mostly abandoned, the area. So, okay. And so I guess, so this, so yes, this should be a major event. And yes, I have read Cody McDevitt's book. So it is very good. So I do have, okay, so this is Kourtney and Dr. Francois's website, like why are they so angry, talking about the systemic racism and its effects on individuals. And well, I will let Kourtney give some more background.
Well, the group Why Are They So Angry and the podcast came out of a response to the murder of George Floyd. We were all home in 2020. We all saw what happened. My aunt and I both, again, avid readers, lifelong learners, definitely lovers of history, were wanting to know what could we do? What could we do? We felt so helpless. This isn't the first time that an African American had been killed at the hands of police. So we wanted to talk about it. What could we do? And we definitely put our heads together. It started with a book list, and people wanted more information. So then it lent itself to a course. And right now, you're showing the page on the website of the course that people can take about systemic racism to learn more about it. And then that developed into book discussions as well as the podcast. And the podcast, Why Are They So Angry, is available anywhere that you would find your podcast. So Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. You can even go through the website and listen to it there as well. And the name is a double entendre because a lot of times when things happen, people ask, well, why are Black people so angry? Aren't they equal? I don't understand. So each episode, we talk about things like land theft. We talk about things like health. We talk about finances. We talk about even things like amusement parks and how racism and systemic racism, not just personal acts of racial hate, because we all know that racial hate is wrong towards anyone. But systemic racism is actually policies and procedures and systems put in place to hold back a particular race of people. So that's what we're discussing because it does affect us all in ways we may not know.
Hmm. Okay, yes. I mean, certainly. I do know at the time in Johnstown, yes, the Ku Klux Klan and like most of the United States was at its height, say in 1923. And there were, I do notice other things were going on in Johnstown at the same time, like say Bishop McCourt High School was created, Sunny Hannah Country Club was created. I don't know
Well,
if it
a
was
funny
lately.
thing about both of those organizations, my father was one of the first Black teachers, Richard King, at Bishop McCourt High School in the
Oh, really?
70s. And my grandfather, Wilmer T. Siggers, was a maitre d' at Sunny Hannah Country Club.
Oh,
So taking it away from the 1920s, I remember in the 90s when the Klan was active. That's when the Unity Coalition was formed to combat that. But I remember adults in hushed tones talking about letters from the Klan being sent to Black churches. In the 2000s, in my 20s, there was a gentleman riding around in Johnstown with a Black male dummy in a noose hanging from the back of his truck. So it's not just back with the banishment of Johnstown. And that's why these conversations are so important, because if it doesn't affect you, you don't think about it. But I think with this year coming up, because other organizations are doing things to commemorate Rosedale, so it's not forgotten that even though it's a hard part of Johnstown history, it's still a part of Johnstown history, and we need to talk about it.
yeah, it's certainly something that needs to be acknowledged. So, okay, I mean, yes, certainly there have been, I guess another active Ku Klux Klan in the area was Barry Black, who died recently. And yes, I mean, certainly, I mean, yes, I mean, I'd like to say that, I'm not affected by systemic racism, but, in many ways, sometimes it creeps in when you least expect it, and you always have to be on the watch for it.
And that's why we say see it, say it, confront it, because some people don't know. And it's not a beat up session or well, you're a bad person if you don't know. Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. And that is the goal of our podcast. And I think anyone who's interested in these issues, if you don't know, that's okay. But when you do know, you need to make sure that you're helping the next person and doing better.
Okay. So I mean, so that was your father, you said was the teacher
Yes,
at
Richard
Bishop.
King, he coached football as well as taught at Bishop McCourt High School.
Oh, okay. So that was in the 70s. That was before I was there. I was in there in the 80s. I don't
And
know
that
if
was before I was even born, but that was his
Mhm.
passion was teaching. He didn't continue teaching. He found another path in life. But yes, that was we have ties to Bishop McCourt High School as well as Sunny Hannah Country Club. And I'm proud of both. I'm proud of my father for being a teacher
Okay.
there, and I'm proud of my grandfather for being a maitre d at Sunny Hannah.
I think was your grandfather. I knew there was a documentary that was done with by Bruce Williams, like talking about African Americans. I knew they interviewed like someone who used to work there. I don't know if
I
that
don't know. My grandfather died in '08, so I'm not sure.
okay.
But yes, he did work there, Wilmer Sigger. So anyone that's well, his he died at 100 and a couple years old. We don't even
Wow.
know how old he was. But so his cohorts do remember him being the maitre d' there.
Okay. Well, actually, I did work there in the late 80s, so I might have seen him there. So, okay. So that's another tie here. So, okay. All right. And so, yes. Okay. Well, I do have, let's say, like here in my book and some of my research. I mean, I could show you and discuss with you. Let me just bring it up. So here I do have, right, okay, I'm going to share the screen. This is like some of the health issues, let's say, facing African Americans here in Cambria County. So, I was looking at, one number this really did jump out at me. And that's a very low, like a much lower life expectancy, almost 10 years shorter than whites, like white Americans in Cambria County. So yes, this number did jump out at me. And, so here he's even like almost 7 years shorter than in Pennsylvania and almost 5 years shorter nationwide. Okay, so I did come up, like here, I have this other litany of statistics that may help at least help explain some of these issues, like say like a higher percentage of low birth weight babies. The child mortality rate was higher for African Americans in the county. So yes, infant mortality was higher. Yes, and so lots of other issues like drug use. I mean, I could even show you all. I mean, we could be here all day just talking about all the whole list. So,
Well, we
okay,
definitely could talk about it by the numbers, but a lot of African Americans have a healthy fear of going to the doctor. And that would not be an imaginary fear. You have things like the Tuskegee
syphilis study, yeah,
experiment. You have things in all parts of American history where African Americans were used as medical experiments to perfect certain medical procedures. The father of gynecology used African American enslaved women without anesthesia to perfect gynecological procedures that we have to this day. We did a podcast episode on a young man who had a hole put in his head because a doctor's office, and actually a hospital in Indiana, wanted to experiment with the new X-ray machine and told parents, "Oh, this is just a treatment for lice."
yeah,
So there is a healthy fear of African Americans accessing medical care, as well as studies have shown that medical students still believe that African Americans feel pain differently than their white counterparts. They are less to get pain management because they are viewed as looking for drugs. So, and also you can even look at environmental factors as living near unhealthy places. That's going
Yeah.
to make you sick. So if you add all that together on top of not having access, not having health insurance, um, other things as well, mental health also goes into it, stress, and that is a factor in high blood pressure, which Black people are often predisposed to. So there are other factors. Looking at the numbers, they're shocking, especially for me, because my grandmother died at 100 years old. My grandfather, we didn't know how old he was. My father's father died at 105. So in my family, going to the doctor was paramount and health was paramount, but we had access to do so. A lot of people don't. And you add that in with mistrust, you add that in with the self medication of drug use, you add that to no access to quality health care, on top of doctors and nurses not treating African Americans the same way they treat their white patients. You're going to come up with numbers like this.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Plus, we are seeing an influx of African Americans, from yeah, coming into our subsidized housing in the housing projects. Like a lot of them are being like encouraged to come here because there's more room for them in our housing projects.
Well, respectfully, what does that have to do with health disparities?
It
If
doesn't.
someone's looking for a better life, they're going to take that chance. Anybody's going to take that chance. Now, when you have a transient population of people, they're going to bring problems. That's
Mhm.
anywhere. We can look at that with immigrants from Ukraine not wanting to live in London because it's too diverse.
Mhm.
So African Americans in Houston, as well as African Americans all the way here in tiny Johnstown, are experiencing these same issues with health based on experience, based on lack of access, based on fear. So that would be the number that I'm looking at. Why are people afraid to go to the doctor? Why are people not being treated the same? The subsidized housing issue, that's a governmental issue. They need to look into that. But
Yeah.
what I care about are why people that look like me are afraid to go to the doctor.
So yeah, I mean, I did see this one at like post on Trump. Like Cambria County is Trump country, it's run by the Republican Party. They posted this one image, show about the upcoming Super Bowl. They said most of the Eagles fans are in the housing projects here in Johnstown.
And
So,
that would speak to their ignorance.
mhm,
Because if somebody told me that I would be homeless or I'd have to move to a small town in the middle of nowhere to make sure my kids are taken care of, I'm not
mhm,
going to be homeless.
yeah,
Nobody would choose to be homeless. So when I see things like that, I know that it's based in fear.
mhm,
No one is like that. It's ignorance and fear, because everyone who comes here from the same state, just on the other side, is not a bad person.
mhm,
Anybody who has an immigrant story has a relative who signed a book in Ellis Island wanting a better life from Italy, from Poland, from Germany, from Spain. So
yes,
to turn that around and say, I'm pointing the finger, and Johnstown's a town of immigrants. This is my hometown. I've got Polish friends, Croatian friends, Russian friends, Italian friends, and every single one of them have a beautiful immigrant story, but they all started at the bottom. Nobody started as the richest man in Johnstown. So to hate on a group of people that I'm sure a lot of the people in that Facebook group won't even interact with, and they don't know their story, that's
mhm,
it's embarrassing to be from the friendly city, because we are a friendly city. That's what the
yeah,
sign says when you come through.
mhm. Yeah, well, it can be a struggle to keep it friendly sometimes, but
It can be a struggle to keep it friendly, but making comments like that, why would I want to be your friend?
true. Yes. So, okay. I mean, all right. And so, so do you see like any encouraging signs? I mean, yes. I mean, certainly there was certainly a big turnout for a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests, let's say like in 2020 in response to George Floyd. So Do you find that encouraging, like seeing people being concerned, or what happened with Tyree Nichols?
I see people being interested. And of course, when something horrible like George Floyd happens in what would be considered a perfect storm, because
Hmm.
this isn't the first time somebody's being killed by the police. That's not new. But we
Yeah,
were all home and we all saw it. So this is the first time that I will say a large multicultural, multi-ethnic movement was started. But as quickly as it started, it became divisive. It doesn't have to be a Black Lives Matter protest. It could just be people in Johnstown saying, we're not standing for racist police officers. We believe that the police should be good, and we're going to stand up and stand out for that. So to attach, is it a Black Lives Matter thing? Yes, I'm Black, my life matters. I like to see people agreeing with that. The thing with Tyree Nichols, it was horrible, and it speaks to the systemic racist culture of the police. And it shows that systemic racism can seep into anyone to act without
yeah,
impunity. Now, what I am seeing in Johnstown, what I love to see in Johnstown, is new businesses going into downtown. I grew up when McCory's was downtown and
yeah.
when Glosser's was downtown. I hear my mom and my aunts talk about Penn traffic. So when I see restaurants going back into downtown, I love that. When I see the Edison lights up downtown, the State Theater having, movie marathons. I always hate to see fellow people from Johnstown and often people outside of our county disparage it and say, oh, well, drug addicts are just going to do something to it. Or, oh, good luck with that. It's going to fail. I didn't grow up in that type of Johnstown. I grew up in a positive Johnstown, and I'm slowly seeing that. But we all have to see each other as members of the same city. And I don't see that. That is what's heartbreaking, is that if everybody really did come together and be the friendly city and not have secret agendas or bias that they either hide or don't hide, we would have an amazing model city. Because I don't believe that Johnstown is an inherently racist place. We're too much of a melting pot. We're too much of a city of survivors to hate each other.
Hmm.
My parents almost lost each other in the 77 flood. But, people came together, the 1936 flood, the 1889 flood. We're a city of survivors. But to see so much division and hate, that's not the Johnstown that I grew up in. I moved away, went to college, got married, and came back because I believe in Johnstown. I believe in our city, and I really, really hope that others kind of put down the Republican, Democrat, Independent, you're from Philadelphia, I don't know you, you're rich, you're poor, and
Hmm.
be what Johnstown was meant to be, a, a great, amazing place to live.
Yes, well, certainly. The founder of Johnstown, Joseph Johns, he was a pacifist, a Mennonite pacifist. And yes, he certainly, I mean, his vision for the area, I mean, I don't know if it, certainly he had a vision for the area. So, even before there was a Native American community that lived here, the Conemaugh Indians, with who had, I spoke with Paul Douglas Newman about that. So yes, that was another productive interview.
So definitely it's in us. Any town that can survive what we've survived,
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything that can beat us unless it's us.
Yeah, well, certainly, yes, it can be overcome. So, I mean, so yes, I mean, certainly, yes. I mean, what I try to do and what you're trying to do is just try to take a very honest look at the area and the issues and trying to inform people about it. So,
But
so
and I love doing the interview. I love seeing independent news
mhm.
because It's the facts, just like on Dragnet with Joe Friday, just the facts, just the numbers, just the facts. And that's what we do and why they're so angry. We give you the facts, we give you the history, and we hope you learn from it. So I'm happy to see that there's independent media
Yeah.
coming from where I'm from.
hmm I mean, certainly, yes. There were even African Americans who were killed in the 1889 flood, and and go. They were here all the way back to the 1830s. This was a way station on the Underground Railroad.
Yes, yes, it was. And a lot of people don't know that. And I would hazard to guess that I think a lot of the African American community in Johnstown feels forgotten. But
Mm,
just like you shared with me, there were African Americans here in the 1830s. We were a part of the Underground Railroad. We've always been woven into Johnstown. So I think once the learning begins, the healing can begin. And a lot of people who feel on the outside of the community, because people hear the things that people say. Oh, well, you must be from Philadelphia. Whenever there's a crime that happens, you can
mm,
go on to the news sites and say, oh, that's the usual suspects. We're living in Little Philadelphia. I moved back here from Connecticut.
okay.
And New Haven, Connecticut makes Johnstown look like Mayberry. No disrespect to New Haven, Connecticut. I absolutely loved it. Yale is there. It's a beautiful place to be. But
Mm,
when I hear people in news broadcasts or responding, not broadcasts, I take that back, but in news forums saying, oh, we're Little Philadelphia. No, we're not. And
well,
I
some,
know it I know it comes from a place of fear. I
mm,
know it comes from a place of ignorance. But if that doesn't stop, how are we going to come together?
yeah, I mean, an argument could be made that I guess Johnstown might be a miniature Pittsburgh, with the steel mills, the rivers, we have our own little confluence at the Point Stadium.
But
So,
when people say that, that's not the comparison that they're making. They're making it seem like, well, we have all the bad guys from Philly, or we're getting a crime rate like Philadelphia, because you've seen it. You've gone onto the WJAC page when there's a crime and you see the comments where it says, oh, we're Little Philadelphia. No, we're not. We're Johnstown. And if we don't
yeah.
get out of that mindset of division, we can't do better. If there is an issue with the powers that be, then we need to come together as we, the people, all of us, and fix it because people want to talk about subsidized housing. I don't think anybody really wants that as a choice.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a warm home. So to blame people for being poor, that's weird,
hmm
but you see it. But again, I don't believe it's coming from a place of hate. I believe it's coming from a place of fear. Where's my piece of the pie? Where am I going to live? Who are these people? But I heard my grandparents tell stories that people felt that way about immigrants coming into certain neighborhoods of Johnstown. Oh,
hmm
well, this used to be a German neighborhood. Here come the Italians. Oh, this used to be a Russian neighborhood. Here come the Irish. But we made it work. Sadly, unfortunately, due to color of skin, sometimes it's hard to find common ground. But we're a working city, we're a loving city, we're a friendly city. And I believe so much change can happen if we start looking at our similarities and not forgetting our differences, honoring those differences, because that's what made this place.
hmm Yeah, I mean, we are seeing some of this fear like bubbling up now with, I guess I guess, like during the election or for between Frank Burns and Renee Billow, Burns was attacking Renee Billow for aligning herself with, excuse me, individuals who want to bring African Americans here to the city. No, not African Americans, Afghan refugees. So
And I
that,
remember that. And politicians are going to do what politicians do. They're going to politic. They're
Yeah.
going to play on our fears. They're going to tap into the worst case scenario as opposed to saying, okay, let's get involved in local government.
Mm,
Yeah, okay, the commercial's telling me this. I need to be at a city council meeting.
mm,
I need to be involved to know what's really going on.
yeah.
What's behind this? Is it money or are we really actually helping people? Because I guarantee you, if somebody said, I want to bring Ukrainian immigrants here because of what's going on in the Ukraine, which they need so much help right now,
Mhm.
people would be all for it
Yeah.
because they look like them. But
Mm,
when people hear Afghanistan, they automatically are triggered by, oh, it's going to be a Muslim person, it's going to be a terrorist. You don't know that. And
mm,
you don't know why these people are coming here because, once again, they could be coming here for what every immigrant family came to Johnstown for, a better life and a chance to live the American dream. And there are bad apples in every bunch. I'm not an
I
apologist
agree.
by any means. There are, you can throw it, you could go to anywhere. My mom lives in Quincy, Illinois, which is a small
Yeah.
farm community. There are bad people there,
Hmm.
but
So,
there's a lot of good. Just like that, there may be a bad guy. And if a bad person's here and they're breaking the law, you don't get a pass from me because this is my city. I want people to come here and learn and grow and make a life and make my city better. But if you're coming here for crime, I'm all about following the law.
yeah.
But these people often don't even get a chance. They're marked from the moment you hear their ethnic group. Oh, we
Yeah.
don't want them here. Or they're marked from the moment you hear what city they're from. And if there are abuses in the Section 8 program, that needs to be looked at on every level.
Mhm.
But to immediately assume everyone who comes from a different place is out to do Johnstown wrong, no disrespect, we're a struggling city. We might need more people here to kind of start businesses and give us
Okay.
different diversities and opportunities. But I could go on all day because I love this town.
Okay. So what do you do for a living here in town? Just curious.
I worked for a bank for about 3 years. And then when I moved back home, my husband said, you can relax and enjoy the comforts of being a stay at home wife, not a stay at home mom. They
Yeah.
have the hard work. I'm a stay at home wife. I am actually working with the Why Are They So Angry learning community and developing our book list and book discussions
Okay.
for this year. Of course, I'm hosting a podcast with my the Why Are They So Angry podcast, and I'm also writing my first fiction novel. So I'm a writer,
Okay.
which means I stare
Well,
at the computer for hours at a time, wondering what I'm going to come up with next.
all right. Well, good luck to you. Well, we only have a few minutes left. I was going to stop recording and then, we'll say our goodbyes. And so, okay. Well, I do want to thank you for coming here, and I hope you found this a good discussion.
Oh, I definitely did. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. It's an honor and a privilege to talk to you today.
Okay. Well, I look forward to covering the Rosedale, like your Rosedale panel, and any other events that are coming up here in the area. So,
Well, thank you again.
all right, and well, have a good day.
You too.